A very good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, Maharashtra State Branch Students Forum, I, Vaishnavi Adani, Joint Public Health Officer, would like to welcome Dr. Mala Menon and thank her for giving us this opportunity to interview her. Indian Pharmaceutical Association, Maharashtra State Branch Students Forum, one of the chief segments of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, has been the go-to platform for pharmacy students in the state of Maharashtra for decenniums. Under the auspice of the student-run organization, various budding pharmacists have united to harmonize their energies for exploring the boundless avenues of pharmaceutical sphere. The IPMSP-SF prevails in its effort to promote the pharmacy profession due to the continuing support of its associated colleges, the pharmaceutical industry, and Indian Pharmaceutical Association. Moving on to our honorable guest for today, Dr. Mala Menon. She has 34 years of experience in teaching and 2 years in the pharma industry. She is currently working as an adjunct professor of pharmaceutics at Bombay College of Pharmacy. She has successfully mentored 35 MPharm and 10 PhD students for their coursework. Her key research interest areas include drug delivery systems, novel vaccine delivery approaches, probiotic formulations, and many more. Ma'am has received research grants from various government institutions like AICTE, UGC, BRNS, Mumbai University, and private industry sectors like Mother Dairy, Abbott, Glenmark, Pfizer, and many more. She has around 43 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and 4 book chapters. She has presented at more than 80 presentations at various seminars, conferences, and workshops. Ma'am has 3 patent applications and 1 granted patent application to her name. She has been an active part of many professional bodies such as IPA, Control Release Society, Association of Pharmacy Teachers of India, Society for Pharmaceutical Resolution Sciences. She is the recipient of various awards like P.D. Patil Best Pharmaceutical Scientist Award 2015-16, Best Professor of Pharmaceutics from National Education Awards, Promising Innovation in Solid Dosage Form, sponsored by IPA ACG SciTech 2018. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Sri Lekha, Associate Cultural Secretary, and Neil Parekh, Joint Executive Officer, who will interview our guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishni, for the wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, ma'am. We are extremely honored to have you here with us today. And without any further ado, let's begin with our interview with our guest, Dr. Mala Menon. Ma'am, I'd like to ask you first, why did you choose to become a pharmaceutics professor? Did you always possess an inclination towards the topic? And if not, then how did you discover your affinity towards the same?
I think this is a bit, difficult to answer. I think I completed my B.Pharm in 1980. Okay, so during that time, I think as a student, I liked all the subjects. I was interested in all the subjects, be it pharmaceutics or pharmaceutical chemistry, maybe pharmacognosy. All of them were very interesting and quite exciting. And as it happened, I got, when I was a topper in my college, for which I was being offered a scholarship from Mumbai University. So having got that scholarship, I decided to go for MPharm. And at that time, I think it was, we had Dr. Balla, Professor Balla, who was the head of pharmaceutics section, and he was a very ideal teacher. And my inclination was to work under him. So I think that's why I chose pharmaceutics. But I would just like to say that, taking MPharm in pharmaceutics or being interested in pharmaceutics, that becomes a sort of a compartmentalization. Over the years and even during MPharm, right, while doing a project, invariably you have to encroach and learn other subjects, right? So there is chemistry involved, there is some, when you do animal studies, toxicology, and the project that I did in MPharm, right, that was a comparison of sterilization methods for various ointment bases. So there again, I had to touch upon microbiology, I had to touch upon, formulation, because ointment bases, physical pharmacy invariably is involved in all the sorry for that, invariably involved in, wherever you work in pharmaceutics. So I would say that, the pharmaceutics is, and then gradually I also realized that pharmaceutics is a subject where, all the knowledge that you have learned is utilized or applied in pharmaceutics. So that is the last step, the finally delivering the dosage form. And there are many subjects under the umbrella of pharmaceutics. So all of them together, I think that developed an interest. And over the years, if I look back, I mean, I worked in industry for 2 years. So there again, it was entirely the manufacturing, which is pharmaceutics. And when I started teaching 2 years later, again, I've taken practically all subjects under the umbrella of pharmaceutics. I have taught, maybe initially I was asked to teach microbiology because I've worked on sterilization studies. I've taught cosmetics, hospital pharmacy, clinical, physical pharmacy, and of course, pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical technology. So I've touched upon all subjects. So over the years, the interest grew. And today we have biotechnology. So today, I think we cannot really, restrict ourselves to any subject. We have to work and collaborate, coordinate with other people, right? And life sciences is expanding so much, so we cannot escape that. So we need to work with life sciences collaborators and, bring up analytical, of course, is an important subject, whichever branch you go into. So that is what I've realized. And I don't know, I worked in industry for 2 years, and then I realized that I must go for teaching. That is where my inclination is. And once I started teaching, invariably, because having done MPharm in pharmaceutics, you end up in, you take up a position as lecturer in pharmaceutics. And then over the years, I've reached this stage of the professor in pharmaceutics. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I completely agree with you with regards to all the subjects being interconnected with our field. It is ever growing, and I completely agree with you with that. And I hope that the students watching us right now have grown some interest in the subject of pharmacy, and not just that, but also the sub branches, and they are definitely inspired by you.
Ma'am, I'm just curious to find out, how did you decide to pursue your PhD?
I think doing PhD was always there in the mind. At the end of MPharm, you know that you need to do a PhD. But then in those days, I think I felt a job was equally important. So initially, then I set out and worked in industry for 2 years, and then came back for teaching. And in teaching, I think I realized that for us to progress, later on, research is important and completing a PhD is important. So within about 2 years after joining the teaching position, I registered for a PhD. So I was actually doing a full-time teaching job, also doing my PhD. And of course, that was the age when, you get married, you have a family. So we were, I think I was, and many of us during that time, many of my other colleagues, we were all in that same boat. We were juggling many things. As a result, I think PhD, I took about 9 years. And for the Viva to get completed, another 1 year. So 9 to 10 years to complete my PhD, because all these things together, balancing the work progressed very slowly. I did my PhD also under Dr. Balla. And I must say that, he was very encouraging, and he had a lot of patience with me. He realized that as a teacher, we had to do a full time, the lectures, practicals, and also do our PhD. So, but it was a very exciting doing the PhD, and I had the support of course, my guide, a lot of my colleagues, right, in the college. We, say if I had to do some pharmacology work, some animal studies, the pharmacology faculty, a lot of the PhD students who were working around that time, they also lent us support. If something has to be, some sample has to be withdrawn, in late, then they would withdraw it and keep it for me. Animal studies also, a lot of the, the lab assistants, attendants, all of them, I must say that, they supported a lot in giving us certain things, or, supporting some space in the lab. It was not, it could not work continuously. It would be a work mainly in the vacations, weekends. or, before lectures, after lectures. So we couldn't work, say you plan something, sometimes it doesn't work out. But I think at the end of it all, it was, I felt very good. And I think that has helped me move up and do a lot more later on, take postgraduate students, right? And do a lot of, contribute to research in pharmacy. I mean, it's unlike now what, the students after that, you get a fellowship, you do full-time PhD. It was very different, talking of 1980s and early 90s, right? When, I don't know, does that answer your question? It was, I mean, that was always, in fact, I think I had also thought of, going abroad, maybe after MPharm, but again, all those things did not materialize, it was all, so that was the way the things were in those days. Today, I think those were the days without what you call internet, without computers. So we had to actually go to, Hafkin library or go to other libraries, IIT libraries, browse through journals, browse through international pharmaceutical abstracts. We had to write to the authors to get the research papers, right? And then you get those reprints. Xeroxing also was not much heard of. It was very difficult to get Xeroxes made. So we had to actually write down. Or maybe, the Xerox, you tell them to give a Xerox, you have to go back after 1 week and then you get it. So that was a way in which we worked in those days. Today, of course, it is smooth sailing along all those lines, literature search and all that. You have good facilities. The digital age we have come into. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, that definitely does answer our question. Ma'am, you had quite an adventurous journey and exciting journey. I'm sure your journey will definitely serve as a cue for the students who are willing to pursue higher education, ma'am.
Yeah.
As someone personally, I am very much into research and I've been wanting to pursue it, but my interests are very different and yours interests will definitely be different. So I would love to know about your research interests and how you see your research program developing over the next few years.
So research, basically, I mean, when I set out, it was mostly on drug delivery, okay? Because being in pharmaceutics, the key focus is drug delivery, maybe the conventional or the novel systems. I think during my PhD, I worked on a long-acting injectable, okay, for malaria chemoprophylaxis, because that was what was recommended by WHO and other authorities. So an injectable which will, which will give 3 months of drug release, okay, so that when you travel to other endemic regions, a person has to take such an injection. So when I started after my PhD, then I became a recognized teacher for masters. So I started taking students. At that time, I had applied for a project along those lines for anti-malarial chemoprophylaxis, and I'd got a project from UGC minor, right? And so the first about 3 or 4 students worked in that area because the funding was available, and we continued. Some more drugs we took up and we did small studies. After that, I mean, there were many other areas, like that was a time in 1980s, 1990s, mucoadhesion was new. So mucoadhesive systems, then a lot of all these, the emulsions, the, what we call that, the multiple emulsions, the micro emulsions. So the specialized emulsions, that was another area which I ventured into. Somewhere along then, I ventured into ocular systems, ophthalmic drug delivery. That was, I think, after completing about 5 to 6 MPharm students with all these projects, then I could apply to become the recognized guide for PhD. So when PhD students started coming in, then ocular drug delivery and nasal drug delivery started out with some projects. And along the similar lines, I attended few lectures, also a seminar organized by IPA in those days on inhalation drug delivery. Okay, and that's how somewhere the inhalation drug delivery, I started some work. And I think almost, I mean, among the about almost 50% of my students or more have worked in this nasal and inhalation area. And we could explore a lot of drugs. Under this, we got projects from Board of Research in Nuclear Sciences, BRNS, and also from Mumbai University. Also, we did some industry projects related to comparison of devices for inhalation. Also, some the deposition pattern of these dosage forms. And we explored initially with asthma drugs, then for lung cancer. Then we went ahead and we thought, we could do mucosal vaccines, right? Because the vaccines delivered via the nose and the lung. So that was very interesting. And I think initially the students were hesitant. Always I've seen that, to start something new in the group, because no one else has done it. But I think, when the results come, at least a preliminary, I said, let us try it out. It's always feasibility. Let us look at the feasibility. And that was how, we developed it. And today, actually, we are trying to develop a mucosal vaccine for tuberculosis, okay, which will, because tuberculosis is a very, deadly disease. We still have not, in spite of so many drugs, all the resistance, there are so many problems. So, we've got my group has got the confidence to work on these areas. Also, the drug delivery for tuberculosis, right, by inhalation, because it's for pulmonary tuberculosis. Another area which again was veterinary drug delivery, okay, which this again was because I think I have met key people or a lot of people in my whatever interactions, and they have all given ideas. During this one of these board of BRNS projects, we had to do lung deposition, and for this in Bombay Veterinary College, the Dean of Bombay Veterinary College at that time was Dr. Samath. So he actually helped us out, he and his group. And he suggested, or he had a lot of ideas, he said in animal healthcare also, there are a lot of, requirements in terms of improved drug delivery. And that's how he gave us ideas, and we worked on bovine mastitis. So one student worked on it, in situ gelling system for that is known as dry cow therapy. So we learned a lot about, animal health and, what are the issues, because at the animal health level, the ground level in the farms or all these agricultural setups, the situation is very different. They have to handle large herds. So whatever we talk of patient compliance and all that, right, there it is even more. If you have to administer a formulation to say 100 cows, 100 buffaloes, right? So imagine the time and labor involved. So if we have some of these novel systems, it will be a lot of time saving for the veterinarian. That's how, and in fact, in those days, that was the early 2009, 2011, we applied for a patent. And we got that patent just, at the 2020, okay, on a dry cow therapy system for bovine mastitis. So that was the first patent that my group has got. Then later on, he gave us more ideas like for wound healing, then n number of ideas. And I always had a group doing, veterinary work. And here it was very exciting because being veterinarians, they could actually take these products, try it out on some animals, right? And we got a feedback, we could improve upon it. So that was like a living experience, which we can't do it with, human products, because they are the clinical. Here, being veterinarians, they have the permission to carry out some studies themselves. So that was a very, and also another important thing is here, we could actually see it being scaled up. Two of the products that we developed for veterinary, they were, they have been taken up for, commercialization. So some feasibility trials are done, and, with one of the companies. So all this is with the support of this veterinary team under Dr. Samath. So I think, and still our interactions are continuing, and he's having more ideas, and that is something which is developing. In case of inhalation drug delivery, I have attended a lot of the respiratory drug delivery symposia, where we have presented our papers, published our papers. So there I have met a lot of experts in inhalation drug delivery, respiratory drug delivery. So that again, became a key area in my research group. Vaccine delivery, of course, I always had an inherent interest in microbiology. When I started teaching microbiology, when I actually started teaching in 1985, right? So inherent, and then of course we have biotechnology that has expanded to biotechnology. So always some areas, or all my projects are interlinked to, there's always some microbiology element or something in that. Again, similar to that, probiotics, that is another area where this also started with an industry project. I mean, Mother Dairy. I mean, all of you are familiar with Mother Dairy, which is into all these dairy products, ice creams, the dahi, probiotic dahi and all that, right? So they had come to us and they wanted to study the viability of these, their probiotic cultures themselves and in the dahi, in the GI tract, right? Whether in the stomach they are getting, what do you call it, whether they are inhibited in the intestinal environment in presence of bile. So we have done that study. And again, in the group, I mean, we got a lot of interest, and later on, we did a lot of projects ourselves, like microencapsulating these probiotic cultures, right? Looking or, trying to see whether, which because probiotics are known to have a lot of antimicrobial activity. So which microbes they can inhibit. We also did a study like for acne, whether they can be effective. So we developed a gel for that. Anti-dandruff activities there, so it has, we've developed a probiotic jam because for children, it will be, there are probiotic chocolates, biscuits, etc. right? So we developed, I mean, one of the MPharm students developed a jam, probiotic jam. So, I think with a small idea, n number of things can develop. So that's how I have, developed the projects. I mean, I think it's ongoing. I mean, once you start, then it is, more and more ideas come up with more and more reading and understanding, attending seminars, talking to experts. So a lot of networking or, at least interacting with people is very important in getting newer ideas or learning from other areas, right? That is very important. Okay. In this, I don't know now, or maybe in the end, I will give that example, right, of a person whom I met. So maybe in the end. Okay.
Certainly, you're quite right. Science is a never-ending field, and with pharmacy, with medicine, it is again another never-ending field. Humans will have some or the other problems that they'll face, and your research is certainly widespread, and it is most definitely making a huge impact towards the society. And of course, the progress is very much commendable.
Ma'am, you have a quite number of publications under your name. So can you please share the experience of the one you feel is the most memorable one for you?
I think actually, but frankly speaking, I think my number of publications is quite less. I think there are only about 43 or 45 publications and maybe 3 to 4 book chapters, right? Which is very less compared to what today a lot of people have, it goes in hundreds, right? I think probably on the publication level, I've been a little slow. Maybe the students sometimes write, because of busy schedule, I'm not able to complete the correction. But whatever, I think among the publications, I think we were quite, we were quite excited when 2 papers have come in Journal of Aerosol Manufacture and Pulmonary Drug Delivery, right? That is one of the best journals for pulmonary drug delivery. So 2 of my papers, and I mean, we plan to write more. There are a lot of pending publications which are there. Also, there was one publication in biologicals that was at mucosal vaccine, which my first student did, right? There are 2, 3 more which are written, and the corrections are going on. So we hope to publish it in big journals. I think in those days we were, there was nothing like an impact factor, or, we didn't really race for all that. Things were not so competitive. But today, I think all these things are becoming very important, right? The impact factor, which journal you publish. Today, although there are many journals, there are also a lot of journals which are not of very good repute, right? So, you have to actually weigh and choose. Then there is a publication fee which is there. So that again makes it more difficult to, from where will this money come from, right? The finances from which project and all that. So these things are a little bit difficult, it's coming in the way of publication. Now, among the book chapters, I think I have about 4 book chapters. And in that, I would say the last one, I mean, that I was really very happy doing it. That was, I think all of you are familiar with Remington, right? So a new edition of Remington has come. And in that, I was invited to write the chapter on aerosols, okay, being in pulmonary drug delivery. And I think there, I was happy that I could, I asked Dr. Richard Dalby, who is from the University of, he's from a US university. I mean, immediately that, so he agreed to co-author with me. He is one of the key conveners of these respiratory drug delivery symposia. And he has been, he agreed, and 3 of my PhD students. Okay, so together we wrote the chapter, and we gave the chapter a different outlook altogether, because in the earlier chapter was based only on aerosols, the pressurized systems, right? The propellant-based systems. Now today you have the dry powder inhalation systems. You have so many devices. You have the nebulized systems. Lot of changes have come, right? So we were able to incorporate all those, and it was quite a pride, in Remington, in one of these standard textbooks, which has been for so many years. I mean, hundreds of years, Remington has been something like a Bible for pharmacy students. So to write a chapter or contribute a chapter in that book was quite a joy for me and my students, and of course, and having Dr. Dalby with us as a co-author.
Yes, ma'am. So it really does sound interesting, ma'am. The journey of publication is absolutely bittersweet at times. And I think all the students here can agree that we are honored to have gotten an insightful window into your experience with publications. As at some point or the other, the students like us will definitely try to publish articles. Yes, ma'am.
You have bagged 3 Best Professor of Pharmaceutics awards and Best Pharmaceutical Scientist award. I would love to know what your experience was while receiving these awards.
Well, it was, it felt very good receiving these awards. I mean, on a personal level, of course, I did feel good that, that getting that award. But more than me, I think the kudos goes to the students, right, who have actually, done the work under my guidance. So I think it is an award for both me and my student group, right, who have done all these studies, who have done. So it's a great joy for them also that, it's also, I think it is an institution also, because I represent Bombay College of Pharmacy as an institute, right? So it is a matter of pride for the institute also that a faculty from that institute is getting the award. So on the whole, it is a very good feeling getting these awards, that so the work is recognized, the student efforts are recognized, and the institute is recognized, right?
Yes, ma'am, I do agree that first of all, teamwork does go a long way. And of course, it's a very commendable and a very proud feeling. And we are very glad to have you here with us today.
We have successfully mentored 35 MPharm students and 10 PhD students. So, ma'am, what according to you were the difficulties you faced while guiding them?
I think the difficulty, you cannot really call it difficulties, it's more of challenges. But I think at the student level, or, there are no challenges, right? Because the students come in with a lot of enthusiasm. they have a lot of ideas, and they are the young students, right? So they are quite fast in their work. And today, especially when, you have to rely on internet, you have to browse the internet for articles and all that, the students are definitely much faster than me. I am a little slow at all these, and I would take a much longer time, right? So if I want some information, they are, quickly they are able to dig out the information. They already have good ideas, right? A lot of ideas definitely come from the students themselves. And I have observed that it is a great learning process between the student and the teacher, right? A lot of things we learn from the young students in terms of, the knowledge that is there today. Challenges, in the last few years, maybe in the last 5 years, I would say that there has been some challenges because we get students from all over, right? Being a government aided institute, they all come with a GATE qualification from all over. And sometimes you find students who have language issues, or, sometimes at that institute, probably, the basics are not grilled enough. Then you have to work more on that student. Right? But most of the students come through. They really, the work, and they are able to pass all the stages. And in the end, it's a successful thing. It's a great success for the student, and for me also a great satisfaction as a teacher. I will tell you a case of, one student, this was years back, somewhere in 2007 or so, where the student was from Rai Bareli. And he could barely speak a few words in English, right? I do not remember now whether in those days GATE qualification or GPAT qualification was a must, but he had a lot of difficulties, in a seminar, everything. But in the end, he did so much of good work, and his theses and everything. And towards the end, he was a transformed person, right? So, that was a great satisfaction for, and I think one thing about this is their network, all the teamwork and all that, that also supports the student. So if there is a good team, a good group of students, then that teamwork really helps. I would say in the last few years, somewhere the students, not necessarily only from Mumbai or from outside, I think there is a drift in the students' interests. Somewhere students are, not looking for hardcore jobs. So they feel M.Pharm is just a stepping stone to a better job prospect, better placements, right? So then they are not. In fact, I have had 2 students the last 4 years who have not completed their M.Pharm, right? They have not even submitted their synopsis for whatever reasons. They were, they've just left and gone. So that was a little bit, I was a little bit worried as to why this is happening. Coming to such a prime college like BCP and getting all the opportunities. I remember that one boy, I used to speak to him on all languages, Marathi, Hindi, everything, trying to convince him, talk to him. I think sometimes they have a lot of problems in their hometowns, so a lot of counseling is sometimes required for the students. But these were challenges. And in so many of the students, I think only 2 of them have sort of, backed out or, could not complete their work successfully.
Yes, ma'am. Very true, ma'am.
It's a very satisfying experience. And I've also observed one thing, that I think I should say, that there are many students who after B.Pharm or after M.Pharm, they go and work in the industry for a year or 2, and then they come back. Maybe they want to save money and then come back for because today the fees, etc. are very high. I've always found that those students were, much better, much more mature, and they were able to handle because of that professional experience. So that would be a good thing, for people to do. Maybe get some experience at hand and then come back, for further education. Of course, in our country, this sort of flexibility is limited. People, want to finish everything at one go. and then get into a job. So that there are a lot of such difficulties.
Absolutely, ma'am. Experience does play a really important role in one's careers. So, ma'am, those are really some big shoes to fill in when it comes to mentoring students. But the way amazing teachers like you mentor them is actually quite amazing and, ma'am, commendable, ma'am.
I totally agree with you, Neil. I'd love to know what qualities or skills that should be there for a budding pharmacist and for them to make a smooth transition from an undergrad learning student to an industry level or a higher study student.
This is, this is a much debated topic today, right? That bridging the gap between the academia and the industry. Okay, there are a lot of seminars held. I think there are a lot of discussions going on in this area. There is a gap, and I think this gap is widening over the years. I think and this has become quite acute in the last maybe 10 years or so, right? We get a lot of reports from industry that the students, I mean, even the top students, I mean, students with very good grades, marks, are found, lacking some of the basic qualities, or they're not able to adapt themselves, and the industry has to train them again, right? So somewhere, I do not know where the, how to exactly pinpoint. Probably it is maybe in the curriculum, actually, everything is there. That is what we have been, talking to people, that curriculum, you have everything, right? You have all the aspects of industry, formulations, you have validation, and such other industry related topics are also there in the curriculum now. But somewhere there are difficulties. So I think the students, what I've observed is students' attitude has changed, right? Probably the curriculum, I mean, students are not focused and not willing to learn the basics, right? They are always thinking of something futuristic, right? They are worried about, whether, because when you're doing your B.Pharm, you also side by side, a lot of students are preparing for GRE or maybe TOEFL, GPAT. So they're attending classes for that. It has ended up in a very, the difficult situation. Also, I think when they go for training, whatever that implant training or work experience, whatever, 1 month, 2 months, there also there are, the students are, we always hear students are not interested, or sometimes the industry is not focused towards the gear, the supporting. They feel there are a lot of, because I have actually been in charge of this implant training for many years. So we used to talk to the students, guide them, tell them what you have to observe, what do's and don'ts and all that. But somewhere still there is a gap. Doesn't happen completely as we wanted, as it was. I mean, I remember when we were students, that implant training was very serious thing. We actually spent our time in the industry, and we learned a lot of things in that 1 or 2 months that we were there in the industry, which is not happening now, because I think it's a fast-paced world today. Too much of competition, too much of stress. So I think I would tell the students that they remain focused, grounded in what is present. You have to plan for the future, of course. You have to prepare, but don't take a toll on, don't get into stresses, right? Take each thing as it comes, right? And not to worry. And have your, I think also sometimes students are, very rigid. They say they want to do a course in such and such subject, and they're not willing to deviate. And as I said in the beginning, right, finally what we have to do is interconnect all the subjects, right? So all subjects are important, and not to think that only one subject is important and you focus only on that, because you need all-rounded knowledge. Second is language. I mean, we find a lot of students have this language issue. So they have to, I mean, those students who have studied in vernacular or in other languages, right, should try to do some minimal coaching in English, because finally everywhere English is the language where you have to express yourself, right? So they need to do that. Presentation skills, right? So there again, communication and presentation skills are very important, because you should be able to communicate what are your strengths, what is your, right? Otherwise it is no use. I mean, getting the best marks or getting the best, but doing a very good project, you should be able to convey to the other person, right, what you have done thoroughly, right? And clear all the doubts. Teamwork, I mean, you cannot work in isolation anywhere, right? You need teamwork. So you need to be able to work and network with a lot of people, interact with a lot of people. So communication skills are very important. Another very important thing, which is, in fact, in our NBA, the National Board of Accreditation, that lifelong learning. I mean, that is one thing which needs to come in. I mean, it's not that you finish your B Pharm or your M Pharm and then you get into a job and then that's the end. You have to keep on learning, or wherever higher studies, when you go there, of course, you're going there to learn. Learnings are there. So you need to keep on learning, continuously learning newer things. I mean, see, for all of us, when I would say in those 1980s, when we passed out there, I mean, we have not learned cosmetics, or we have not learned, say, the subjects like biotechnology, or a lot of these subjects were new to us. But over the years, I think we have, learned and try to deliver those subjects, also project areas, right? And every time there are newer things. So you should be able to pick up those newer things and learn that. Of course, digital and internet and all these, the students are very savvy, right? And along with that, the interpersonal skills are very important, and focus on basic aspects. Quite often the basics are forgotten. I mean, you should be able to build on those basics and learn more and more, because things keep on changing and you should be able to pick up on those, right?
Yes, ma'am, I completely agree. We as students we act like the world is entirely dependent on us these days with regards to the pandemic and everything happening around us. We have certainly sort of taken a toll of it on ourselves, that whatever we do is going to impact in a much larger scale. Maybe not now, but in the future it will. And certainly, thank you so much for these tips, ma'am. And we certainly will take a note of these and obviously start working on them.
Absolutely true, Srilekha. So, ma'am, pharmacists play a dual role of the healthcare givers and retailers in our society. So, ma'am, according to you, what do you think is the impact of the pandemic on pharmacy as a profession?
Nick, could you repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am, sure. Ma'am, pharmacists play a dual role of healthcare givers and retailers in our society. So, ma'am, what, according to you, is the impact of the pandemic on pharmacy as a profession?
I think during the pandemic, if I may say, that one of the professions or which has not been much affected is the profession of pharmacy, right? Because invariably, because of the pandemic, because of the large scale disease, sickness involved, I think medicines and healthcare accessories have been very important, right? So, and it is a pharmacist who delivers the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, manufactures the pharmaceuticals, the drugs, right? So invariably that was very important. So I think the industry had to gear up a great deal, even the vaccines, everything. If you see how fast, the pharmacist has really played, has been a real hero, right? During this pandemic times. A lot of new drugs have been tried. There was repurposing, manufacturing much higher batches. There's been a lot of activity on all fronts, the R&D, the manufacturing, the retail front, right? In fact, all the other things were closed, but the retail pharmacies, right, were not closed. The hospitals were functioning. So hospital pharmacists or other healthcare people have been continuously working. I think abroad, from what I have heard, even the universities, many of the professors I have spoken to, they said even their research labs were not closed, because that is one area where, I mean, one of the professors, in fact, he's an alumnus of BCP in one of the US university. He said they're working on COVID vaccines. And they have not, his lab was not closed even a single day, right, during the pandemic, which is not so in our country. In our country, I mean, we had to close all universities and, all the labs, research labs. That is, and there has been a lot of delays in the research projects, right? So we could not maybe in the academia contribute much to maybe, upcoming, although there are some places like ICT, I remember some sanitizer and all that, some herbal sanitizer, etc. There are people who, because we don't have, those elaborate facilities in much of our academic institutions, maybe the hostel facilities, the safety features, etc. But I would say that, I mean, even education at our end, I think the online lectures, online practicals went on, but it is a little, I feel that the online practicals were a setback, because unless you actually work with your hands and do the practicals yourself, you don't learn. I do not know. Now, when I take lectures, I ask them, did you do this experiment, that experiment? And, sometimes there is a gap invariably, right? In spite of all the videos. So that lab exercises are very important, whatever minimal that we must try to do. So that is where, in education, there has been enough course, technical courses we cannot afford to have only online. We need that interaction in the lab. Otherwise, as a profession, I think pharmacy has not suffered that gravely compared to other industries, right? Maybe pharmacy and IT. These are the two industries which have not suffered that much.
Absolutely, ma'am. Whatever you just said is quietly in line with the current scenario, and practical exposure, which is an important aspect for building students' education and academia, is definitely important. So, ma'am, we can hope we'll soon be starting with the universities and research labs, ma'am.
Correct.
Definitely, ma'am.
Yeah, research labs have started, in the sense, whenever I think we started, and then there was a second wave. Now again from June, July, I think research labs have started in most, at least I can say of BCP and many other places, research labs have started. The students are trying to continue their research projects, although there are challenges sometimes, here and there, but otherwise on the whole, it is definitely picking up the work on the work front.
Absolutely, ma'am.
It's very true that, of course, our theory subjects and practicals, they go quite hand in hand. We obviously need to have some hands-on experience, or else it doesn't make sense if we are trying to get into a field that we are not very handy about or we are not familiar with. But other than that, my question to you for now is, how do you think the pandemic will impact the future of pharmacy as a career? And which pharmacy field do you feel will have a greater scope of moving forwards?
I think with the pandemic, as I said, pharmacy definitely has a great future, right? Because I mean, this is one pandemic, and from what we're talking of a third wave. Then again, yesterday I read something about, where, I mean, you may be able to predict, I mean, pandemics may keep occurring, right? Off and on. It is a little scary, but then, there are people who are trying to have surveillance, look at, study various of these bat species and, people in the vicinity, right? So there is a lot of such work going on. I mean, hopefully, I would say we don't want any more pandemics. One itself is enough in our lifetime, or, I think even in future. But so I think the requirement of medicines, healthcare accessories is going to be increasing day by day. And so pharmacy as a profession will continue to grow. Now, which branch of pharmacy? I think all, as I said, all branches have to go hand in hand. But here now, looking at the future, now we have to have, the distancing and wearing of masks, etc. So those protocols have to be followed. And in future, maybe in order to minimize human intervention, what is being spoken of is artificial intelligence, right? Then continuous manufacturing, what they call the fourth industrial revolution, right? Where this is going to be the future, where you will not have too many people manning the industry. Much of it would be digital, computerized, and automatic. Continuous manufacturing is something which should come into pharmaceuticals, like how you have it in other, say, IT industry, etc. There are a lot of studies. Our major problem is, we have to have content uniformity, dissolution, the efficacy, all these things. We still have the batch process. So that is one thing which will come in a big way. Now, future with respect to personnel, now I think so the students have to develop newer skills. They have to be aware of robotics and all these. This also probably should be introduced in the curriculum, or there should be some special courses where these things are introduced to the students. So the knowledge in all these fields would definitely help. Also, rather than lab experiments, I mean, of course, we already have computer-aided drug design, right? CAD. In a similar way, you also have these for clinical research. You have the lot of these software, right? So similarly, all these are going to be the newer areas which maybe we'll have to work in. Again, with respect to respiratory drug delivery, I can say there are a lot of simulation experiments which can be done in silico. So in silico work has to be given a lot of importance, and you predict, and then those minimal experiments you can do it in the lab, right? So these two have to go hand in hand. So this which I observe, as I said earlier, that students are trying to go in for more cozy jobs. They don't want this hardcore work on the shop floor in the industry, or maybe a QA lab, right? They prefer regulatory or something which is routine. And in this, I feel that this will actually take away a lot of importance of the pharmacist. I mean, we have the pure science students who will gain an advantage on it, right? They will get better jobs compared to the pharmacist. I mean, already it is slowly happening, and it is a lot of concern, because we are having a specialized course for the pharmaceutical industry, and somewhere these people, I mean, of course, it is not to discourage them, but I think as pharmacists, we should be alert, and we should ensure that we gain importance in the industry. Now this is also seen in the US. If you actually say, they say that the chemical engineers are dominating the pharma industry, right? So industrial pharmacy is I mean, there's more of community pharmacy rather than industrial pharmacy. So those who are doing industrial pharmacy, I think it is reducing compared to community pharmacy, and it is the chemical engineers. Even here, if you see a lot of these innovations in pharmaceuticals and healthcare, right, are coming from IITs, right, or some of these institutes, the engineering institutes, which again is so I think as pharmacy colleges, as pharmacy researchers, in future, we need to look up all these aspects and gear up so that we continue to innovate and cater towards the pharma industry and overall the healthcare system in the country. So one more thing which comes to my mind is about, I mean, I think community pharmacy should develop in our country, right? With our huge population, and we hear of all these, so much of, even now in the north, there is, a lot of children dying because of the viral infections, right? A lot of these. So I think somewhere community pharmacy has to evolve in our country. which is not there. I mean, I think because the jobs are not there. Community pharmacy for us, it is only the retail pharmacy, right? Or at the hospital level, or at the community level, the retail pharmacist is still not a community pharmacist, right? Still not an expert in medicaments. It's more, he is more of a trader rather than a professional. Clinical pharmacy is coming up, right? There are a lot of opportunities, and it is good to know that a lot of students are going in, like TCS and some of these organizations are picking up a lot of students for clinical as clinical research associates, and so there, that is another area where in a big way it is coming up. So that is also something which is good to know. So I think there is a lot of scope, and I mean, we need not worry. Pharmacy will continue as a very strong profession, right? Because it is concerned with the health of the country, right? And a country like ours, there are a lot of challenging health issues, and we need to, I mean, ensure that we are able to gear up towards, solving all those problems.
Yes, ma'am, I do agree with you, because very recently, even I found out that NASA has a pharmacist team for their research work and for people that are going into space. So it was a very big deal for me to find out, because as someone who likes astronomy, it was like, okay, we can get into that as well. And yes, it is very true that we have a very large impact and a great scope of progress, and we are definitely working towards a better future right now, and let's hope that we get to grow even more than what pharmacy is right now, and as a profession have a very large impact on the not just the economy but as in personal relations as well.
That reminds me of one thing. When you said NASA, I recollect that one of our alumnus, she had passed out maybe almost 20 years ago, and she had come down, I mean, last year or the year before last, and she was saying she's she's working with a hospital or one of these the pharmacy centers, and she is dedicated towards, she is a pharmacist catering to the prisoners. I mean, right, which was, that's again, I was amazed by her this thing. She's saying, because the prisoners have different needs, right? They have a lot of disease conditions, a lot of it may be psychological, right? So many of those drugs going in, so they are all the controlled drugs. So, I mean, in fact, I said maybe, we should invite her to give a talk now with this online, this and all. That was something really new. I mean, I don't know whether here we have we may have a physician there, right? Who's catering to the health, but I mean, a pharmacist devoted to the jail inmates or the prison inmates is something unheard of. But I mean, that is a level of care which is being taken care of. So I think, I don't know, when we also should come to that level, we are able to take care of every person with respect to health care.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with that, because it is still a very new concept. Even though pharmacy has been around for a long time, people are still not used to the idea of pharmacy as a profession. They are still getting used to it. So it's probably going to take some time, but it is worth the wait.
Absolutely. Ma'am, obviously it was a learning experience, and we did learn from interacting with you. But lastly, ma'am, can you give a few words of advice for the students who are aspiring to be in the pharmacy field?
I think the students who are coming in for pharmacy, I think today the generation is very confident, right? They are, I mean, knowledge also is, they are knowledgeable in terms of, I think knowledge is available in the books, also in the internet, right? So a lot of things students definitely pick up, a lot of knowledge. But somewhere I think too much information also is, difficult. And afterwards, you should be able to take up all that knowledge and process it, right? Sift it, sieve it, and then try to, make useful or meaningful conclusions from it, which is sometimes missing. That is what I mean, having interacted with students over so many years, more than 30 plus years, I see that now there is a change, I think, in this fast paced, you tend to do things very quickly in a short time. Too many things. I think everybody is multitasking, including the student. And sometimes there is not enough focus given to what you're doing. And another is emphasis on basics, which again, I keep on emphasizing. Sometimes the basic knowledge is skipped. There are all these advances which are, looked at, but basics are often neglected. So I think go to basics and be grounded. And then do not be stressed, right? I mean, there are ups and downs which come. I mean, so a student may aspire to do something, but that may not be possible, right? The student may want to go abroad, and then due to certain reasons, admission is not there or funding is not there, has to back out, do something else, right? That happens to everybody. I mean, it happens to all of us. I think we also, in our career, we have had all these ups and downs sometimes, right? So you should be able to take care of all these ups and downs. So be stress-free, networking, and I think pick up skills, right? As I said, you need knowledge of the, sorry for this. So all these skills you need to pick up. And I would say another very important message which I want to give all students is lifelong learning. Okay. And as I have interacted with a lot of people, and one of them is Dr. Ajaz Hussain, right? He was in USFD earlier, and now he's a consultant in US. He's again an alumnus of BCP. Now he's coined that word experiential learning. Okay. So during the course of whatever you experience at every step, you need to learn, right? So it may be, sometimes you may not reach your goal, but again, that should be a learning process, right? So I would say experiential learning as you move throughout your life in the profession. Stay grounded. I mean, don't, have too much of, you should aspire, but again, once you achieve success, don't let it get into your head. See that you're still grounded, you're still level-headed. And another important point which I would like to emphasize is ethics. Okay, ethics is very important. I mean, throughout your life, I mean, there are, quite often you end up at crossroads, right? And there might be certain ethical issues involved. So whether to go for it, not go for it. So you should always ensure and maintain that ethics is should be your goal in whatever activities you do, in whatever, be it the profession or the personal life, right? And keep a proper balance in your personal life and the professional life, so that you have a successful career and also a successful, happy life, right? So this is a message that I would like to give, and it was very good. Good interacting with all the three of you, Vaishnavi, Neil, and Srilekha. Thank you very much. And I wish all of you and all the future pharmacists, you are all the future pharmacists of tomorrow, right? So I wish you all success. I would end with, one experience. I mean, some of the experiences that I have had, as I said, some anecdotes, right? I will give you an incident where, I had a student. Kaustubh, just keep this phone away. Will you excuse me for a minute?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Sure.
I'm sorry for this. I was telling you about the experiences, right? I had a student, Kaustubh Kamverkar, who was in the second batch of my MPharms. Now, later on, he did PhD at NIPER, because at that time I was not recognized any went over to NIPER to do his PhD. Then today he is in a top position in J&J in in Europe, right? And I mean, this was at a time maybe about 10 years ago or 12 years ago. He was in J&J facilities at Mulund. And one day, in those days, there was no WhatsApp. So he suddenly messages me, puts an SMS to me, do you know Deepak Gaikwad? Okay, I'm actually using the names because, so I said, yes, Deepak, I mean, I messaged him back. Deepak Gaikwad was my first PhD student, right? So I asked him what is the reason. He said, right now, I mean, at that time, Kaustubh has already risen to some, he is the head of R&D or vice presidential level. So he said, Deepak Gaikwad is in front of me. I am interviewing him. He messaged me. Okay. So then he told me that he would call me in the night. So in the night, he called me and he said, we found him very good. And we are picking him up for the job. So you can imagine my, what you call, my level of joy or happiness that one student whom I've taught, he's in a big position. He's interviewing another student and he's picking up saying that he's good, right? Very good. So that was a real sense of joy that I got. Another is, I mean, a student one day suddenly messages me. This was about a year back. And I could make out from the phone number that it is, he sent me a WhatsApp message, Madam, how are you doing or something. Then I couldn't recognize the student and, it was a US number. So I said, I mean, just put in your name. Then he put in his name and he said he is doing his the postgraduate. He is doing his PhD there, and he said he was associated with some industry, right? And he said that he was doing some work related to pre-formulation. And he remembered what I had taught him in pre-formulation during MPharm. So, I mean, again, I said, oh, I'm so thankful that you remembered me in connection with something that I've taught you. I mean, so suddenly sometimes another student once told me, Madam, you have taught validation. And he was already in the industry. After BPharm, he worked in the industry for, I mean, a year or so, and then he went to US. So when he was in the industry, one day he messaged me, he said, Madam, now I understand the importance of validation and all that, what you taught. So, I mean, these are some things which, I mean, we really feel good then, that well, what we have taught, a lot of alumni, we call them for lectures, right? And I mean, the way they have grown, they've all reached top positions. So that is a great joy that, which when they talk about how from after passing out, what they have done at the various levels and where they are today. Another thing which I think I told you that I'll refer to that anecdote, right? I think as, I mean, we talk of innovation and all that. So innovation, right? Now here, I think we have to go beyond pharmacy sometimes, beyond pharmaceutical knowledge. Life sciences, of course, are important, but sometimes many other fields, may give you some clues to what may be, solution for us as pharmacists. I will give you this typical example where I went to one of these respiratory drug delivery symposia, which was held, and there was one, I mean, there was a talk on simulations, right? The inhalation simulations, and which is, I mean, I have still not picked it up completely. I've just understood the basics. There was one elderly person who was among the audience, and he was talking, he was asking a lot of questions. He was saying laminar airflow. Now, as the air moves through the nose, enters the lungs, there is a shift from laminar to turbulent, then laminar as it passes through. And a lot of the talk was there. Later on, I spoke to this person, and I told him that I which company are you from, which organization? I have not seen you earlier, and I was quite impressed by. So he said he was, 70-year-old, and he was a professor at IIT in aeronautical engineering. Okay, so he's saying that whatever the design of airplanes, right? I mean, how they will, take off, and, you have those currents, air currents, and, it goes laminar, turbulent sometimes when we are. So he's saying now, after retiring from IIT, he is with a group which is designing inhalers, right? So I think that principle of what is, that flight, that plane, the shape of the plane, the wings and all that. So similar is what we apply in design of inhalers, right? Dry powder inhalers. So that was something very striking. I mean, and he spoke again a lot of things, and I communicated with him for some more time. And so somewhere, I mean, imagine aeronautical engineering and inhalers, right? So what is the connection? But I mean, but that is where I think we need to, expand our mind, look at, things around, read more things which, it may not be directly connected, but if you find something interesting, read it, and that might give you a clue or an idea, right? So I think, and today there is no dearth of information, right? You can read, the whole world is at your, on your laptop. So much of information is there, and we should be able to, what is important is not just, reading it, but we should be able to draw meaningful conclusions from all this. So this is another message which I would like to, don't compartmentalize. No, this is my area, I will not go beyond that, right? I think you have to open up your minds, maybe attend some of these seminars. There are a lot of these online webinars, seminars, which are, many of them are free. I mean, you don't have to spend money. So always listen to them, and, so there's a great scope for learning today for the students, and also continue to learn as professionals so that you expand in the profession. Okay, so I think that answers your question, I think, in the end. So thank you very much for giving your time in, interacting with me, and all the best to all of you and all the budding pharmacists.
Absolutely, ma'am. Your message was very clear, and thank you for those uplifting and encouraging words. As you mentioned, ma'am, a bond between a student and a teacher is quite special. And when a student excels, it's actually a proud moment for the professor. And all these anecdotes you shared with us are something which we all will relate sometime or the other later in our careers as well. And ma'am, I'm sure it will definitely motivate all the young and the budding pharmacists, ma'am. Thank you so much for this. And it was a learning curve for each and everyone who attended this session, and all of those who will listen or watch this interview later on, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to ask Marilyn Karia, the Public Relations Officer for the year 2021-2022, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Neil. On behalf of the Indian Pharmaceutical Association Maharashtra State Branch Students Forum, I would like to thank Mala ma'am for giving us this opportunity. It was really a pleasure talking to you, and it gave us many insights about the pharmaceutical field. I am sure this interview will help many students to understand the field, to understand this field in depth, and not only just the field, but your inspiring thoughts will help us a lot in future. We will be felicitating you on 25th September 2021 on the occasion of World Pharmacist Day for your immense contribution to the pharmaceutical field. We are very grateful to have you with us today and making this session a success. Thank you again, and we wish you a very all the best.
Thank you to each one of you